In the past couple of weeks, the idea of the US nationalising the big AI companies, once a fringe idea on the progressive left, has suddenly entered the mainstream. Trump has talked about it on multiple occasions, and earlier this week, it was reported that OpenAI was considering just giving the federal government a stake and encouraging other big AI companies to do the same. So, in this video, we're going to take a look at the idea of nationalising AI and explain why we think it's become essentially inevitable. What comes next after overthrowing your government? That was the dilemma facing Gen Z protesters from Bangladesh to Nepal to Madagascar following their revolutions. We explore the challenges they faced turning protest into power in the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long. That's just some of 80 pages in the magazine, because there's more in Too Long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. So let's get straight into it. The reason we think that some sort of AI nationalisation looks increasingly inevitable is pretty simple. Both the relevant parties, namely the US government and the AI companies, apparently want it to happen. Until recently, this wasn't true. Generally speaking, the American political class, and especially the Republicans, aren't that interested in nationalising anything, and have tended to believe that letting the free market work its magic is the best way to guarantee America's technological edge. On the other side of the aisle, AI companies didn't want to be nationalised because, well, they were making absurd amounts of money, and they didn't want to have to share it with the government. However, both parties have apparently changed their minds. We got a sense things might be heading in this direction last month, when Trump publicly suggested the US could take stakes in major AI companies to, quote, create almost a partnership with the American public. Trump even suggested that his plan wasn't that far apart from Bernie Sanders' proposal for the US to impose a 50% tax on the stock of big AI companies in order to create a sovereign wealth fund for the American people. Now, of course, you might expect the AI companies to be furiously against this, but earlier this week, the FT reported that OpenAI was discussing just giving the US government a 5% stake in the company, worth roughly $40 billion free of charge, and had apparently suggested that other big AI companies do the same. This idea seems to be gaining some traction in the industry. On Wednesday, for instance, Anthropic said that, while it wasn't yet ready to advocate specific policies, they nonetheless supported lawmakers playing a more active role in redistributing AI-related profits. So, what explains this change of heart? Well, when it comes to the US government, we can see at least three reasons. The first is that Trump is just not as ideologically committed to free markets as other Republicans, as evidenced by the fact that his government has already taken stakes in more than 20 companies, mostly in strategically significant sectors like quantum computing and rare earths, an industry that's otherwise dominated by China. In part because these stocks tend to boom after the government takes a stake, Trump really likes doing this, and it's apparently emboldened him to do the same thing with AI. In an interview with CNBC on Thursday, for instance, Trump was asked about the prospect of the US taking a stake in OpenAI, and responded by touting his purported success with Intel, noting that the stock boomed after the US government took a 10% stake last year. Second, Trump's government has had something of a change of heart when it comes to the need for AI regulation. One of the reasons that big tech threw its weight behind Trump in 2024 was that, during the campaign, he essentially promised them that his administration wouldn't really regulate AI or other big bits of tech like social media. However, in recent months, as AI companies and their models have become more powerful, the administration has changed its tune. This became most apparent last month, when the US suddenly cut off Anthropic's newest models, Fable and Mythos, for non-US nationals, and then issued a hurried executive order creating a framework for US agencies to get early access to new models. Clearly, the administration feels it needs a tighter grip on AI, and might decide that nationalisation is the cleanest means to that end. Third, it's just good politics. Americans really hate AI at the moment, and it's shaping up to be a big issue at the midterms. A Pew poll published last month, for instance, found that 40% of Americans think AI is going to have a negative impact on society, while just 16% think it'll have a positive impact, and 63% of Americans think AI is advancing too quickly. Nationalising the AI companies and somehow redistributing their profits would obviously be good politics, and might help bolster Trump's flagging approval ratings. So that's why the government has become keener on nationalisation. But why are AI companies apparently offering themselves up at the altar? Well, again, we can see at least 3 reasons. The first is that some people working in AI are genuinely worried about how AI could lead to absurd concentrations of wealth, and have long argued that the state needs to play a more active role in redistributing any gains. Way back in 2021, for instance, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman published a piece titled Moore's Law for Everything, where he argued that the AI revolution would require a drastic change in policy to distribute this new AI-created wealth. But there are also more self-interested reasons for the AI companies to accept a nationalisation of some form. The first is politics. As we mentioned a second ago, Americans really don't like AI. This is bad news for the AI companies, because it means that Americans are more likely to elect politicians who will regulate them. But it's particularly bad news in the middle of what looks like a speculative bubble, with tech companies spending and borrowing absurd amounts of money to fund a massive bailout of data centers and other AI-related infrastructure, all premised on the idea that AI will make loads of money in the future. A sudden regulatory impulse could plausibly pop the bubble, creating a massive incentive for AI companies to do whatever they can to keep the public, and thus the government, on side, including apparently giving up equity. And finally, nationalisation opens the door to some sort of government guarantee. So, if the bubble pops for some other reason, the US government can step in to bail them out. It's perhaps not a coincidence that the same company that's enthusiastically offering itself up for nationalisation was talking about the need for a government backstop only a couple of months ago. This would obviously be unpopular with the American public, but it's far from inconceivable given how committed America's political class is to winning the so-called AI race with China. As a final thing, weird as this might feel, AI nationalisation would, in some respect, represent a reversion to the historical norm. Previous world-altering technologies, like, say, nuclear weapons, were almost always nurtured and dominated by the public sector. AI was arguably the first truly private sector technology of this kind, and we thus perhaps shouldn't be too surprised that this state of affairs ultimately proved unstable. And if you're thinking that that was a lot to take in, on top of the thousands of other stories happening around the globe right now, you're not wrong. You might even feel powerless in today's climate, and we promise you, you're not alone. If, like us, you're looking for evidence that people can still make a difference, we know exactly the place to go, and that place is Planet Wild. Planet Wild is a community-based nature protection organisation that's passionate about helping our planet, one step at a time. The power we have as a collective really shines bright through Planet Wild, as your membership directly funds a mission every month to give our planet a helping hand. These missions span from ensuring the ongoing survival of endangered animals like the grizzly bear to cleaning up rivers before plastic reaches the ocean, and even rewilding Europe's last ancient forest. And with Planet Wild, you know exactly what you are funding. They don't leave you wondering where your money is going, because they document all these missions in video reports here on YouTube, so we can see exactly what we've helped to achieve. The impact we've made will be right before our eyes. Planet Wild is for those who are tired of words and want to see action. So if you want to join the growing community of people committed to actually making a difference, you can for as little as $6 a month. Every contribution matters, big or small. And if that hasn't convinced you, the first 100 people to sign up and use the code NEWSGLOBAL6 will get their first month membership paid for entirely by us. That's how passionate we are about Planet Wild. So by joining today, you'll immediately make a difference and even be able to see your impact in less than 30 days on YouTube right here. You can cancel your membership at any time, so there's absolutely no catch, just an easy and remarkable way to create real and lasting change. If you want to see them in action, check out their mission protecting grizzly bears and other wild species by building the biggest wildlife corridor in America.